What's really good? What's really good? What's really good? As always. Normally it's Wednesday night, but tonight's Thursday night with the Sanchez Show. I'm your host, Eric Sanchez, aka Legend in Two Games. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. Again, as I mentioned, we normally go live every Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. But tonight we got a very special guest. We got somebody that, if you pay attention to my social media, if you're paying attention to the journey, you see this is someone that I've worked with very closely over the last few years. He is an author, motivational speaker, covers the Orlando Storm of the UFO, which we're going to get into today, covers the ACC tournament, covers Florida State, covers high school football in Florida. If you play sports in Florida, he probably covers your games. All right. So I'm talking about my brother, the one and only Terry Spain from Sports First Media. Terry, how you doing today, bro?
I'm doing great, man, and thanks for having me, man. I'm excited about this show. I mean, you've been doing some tremendous work, man. And anytime I got an opportunity to be on the show with you, I'm all in.
Absolutely, bro. I was looking forward to this as well. I reached out to you because I wanted to get you back on. We did last year, remember, right before the draft.
Yeah.
We talked some football, and you had got into a little bit of the UFL and what was going on at the time. Mm-hmm. Now, with the expansion going into their third season, I felt it was perfect timing. We got to get into some stuff. For those that don't recognize that logo in the background, that is the one of the new 3 expansion teams for the UFL this year, the Orlando Storm. Terry, can you talk about the relationship with the Orlando Storm and how that came about for you and your coverage of them?
Yeah, so I initially started covering. It wasn't the Orlando Storm at the time; they were actually the Orlando Guardians, and this was a few years ago when it was in the XFL, and that the XFL had merged with the USFL, and now they're called the UFL. So I covered the Guardians, but when that merge happened, they took away the Orlando Guardians for a couple years, and now this is the inaugural season for the Orlando Storm, which everybody's excited about. So for the last 4 years, I've been covering the XFL, USFL, and now the UFL. And the last 2 years, actually the last 3 years, I have been covering the championship as well. And the two were in St. Louis the last 2 years, and the one before that was in San Antonio, which was the XFL championship, was in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome.
Yeah, man. So now UFL is doing some big things, right? They bring in 3 new teams this year. Orlando, though, from my research anyway, you can speak to this better than I can. They're not just happy to be a part of the league. Orlando is taking this very serious right out the gate. They hire Anthony Beck, for those that might not be familiar, NFL tight end. I believe he played 10 or 11 seasons in the league. He was the head coach last year in St. Louis. He had a really good year, 8-2, and he brought some of his guys over. So Orlando is taking a very serious approach right out the gate, right?
Yeah, and I had an opportunity to interview Anthony last week, and he's locked in. He's all in. He's a football guy. He knows what it takes to win. Like you mentioned before, he was the Battlehawks coach for the last couple of years, and the Battlehawks has always been on the cusp of one of those teams that should have been in the UFL championship, because they definitely had the crowd behind them. So I'm excited to see what Anthony has to bring to the Orlando Storm. And everyone else is too, because he's locked in. Like I said, I interviewed him last week, and he's ready.
Yeah, man. Now, talk to me a little bit about, for the people that may not be familiar, because UFL, they're bringing some exciting new rule changes, trying to bring some excitement to the game. One of the things that's already hit the NFL recently is that safe zone on the kickoffs, right? That's a UFL. That's a UFL rule that's transition. Now they're bringing some new things. Speak to some of the different rules that the UFL has compared to the NFL and why those things might be exciting for fans.
Yeah, my absolute favorite one, and that's a good question. My absolute favorite rule that they incorporate in this year is the 4-point field goal. You know, the UFL has been kind of teetering towards how they're going to make the kickers more interested in games. And a lot of people were lobbying for a 4-point field goal. So now I think this gives the NFL a couple years to sit back and see how efficient and how effective that 4-point field goal will be in the UFL, just like they did with the kickoff rule. So that 4-point field goal, I'm excited. How important or how great would it be if the first successful kick actually came out of the Orlando Storm? So I know some of the kickers have been, practicing their 60-yard, but that put the onus back on the kickers too, to display their legs, because if you may or may not know, there have been a few kickers that have been selected to go to the NFL, one being the kicker from the Detroit Lions. He kicked in the UFL the previous year. So they're being watched. There's a lot of talent that gets scouted and get back into the NFL. So it's a good thing. I like that rule. But then there's also another rule that's kind of unique, is that there's no punting in the after the 50-yard line.
That's actually my favorite rule.
Yeah.
That's
another one. That's another one that I don't know if the NFL would get to that point, but that's just another rule to kind of excite the crowd.
Yeah, I love that rule because we know the game of football has really changed the last few years, right? The aggressive nature of a lot of coaches going for it on fourth down, and some coaches even coach just to get close enough on the first 3 downs just so they can justify going for it on fourth down. So now, like you said, the mindset changes. We're approaching midfield. We got to go for it on fourth down once we cross that 50. So let's change our play calling. Let's be maybe a little more conservative on first down, knowing we got 3 downs that we got to go for it anyway. And then the 4-point field goal, I think, is also a game changer, especially late game management. If you've got a kicker with a strong leg, like you mentioned, and you know he can knock down a 60-yard field goal, games change at the end. The way you defend them, the way you play call at the end will change. No longer can you be conservative and say, oh, we're okay giving up a field goal that might just tie the game, because that might win the game now. Yeah,
like I was just about to tell you, just imagine if you're down by 3 and you're at the 60-yard line and you putting the onus and all the pressure on the kicker to make that field goal, and he makes it, and then you win the game by 1 point. Man, that is there's nothing like a walk-off field goal in sports too. So that's exciting, man. I'm excited for the UFL. What a win for the UFL to incorporate some of these rules and to be bold, right? You have to be bold in order to make a name. And a lot of people, it's the baseball season just started. So now they're going to be obviously competing with baseball, but there's a lot of people that are hungry for football, and the UFL is definitely here to, kind of, supplant them and help them out, as long as the NFL is still, in their different, how can I say it? As long as the NFL doesn't start until like September, that spring league definitely gives them the opportunity to showcase what they can do.
What's the overall feeling from people in the area in regards to spring football? Because I know Florida loves football no matter what, whether it's high school, college, pro. So like you said, to have this kind of football that fills in the gap, right? People were excited about the NFL draft, but there's no games going on. But now you have the UFL, you have a team like Orlando. So what's the feeling of the people in that area about spring football?
Pure excitement. I tell you what, Mike Rapole, one of the owners, he did a heck of a job with advertising and getting people excited. One of the big things that the UFL is doing this year that I'm extremely excited about is the halftime show. They target a certain artists from these different states. Like obviously, DJ Khaled is going to be the halftime show for the UFL first home game. And then you got for St. Louis, you got Nelly with the St. Lunatics. They're going to be there. You got Gucci Mane. You got all Ludacris. You have all these different artists that are there to excite and kickstart the season. But that was brilliant on behalf of the UFL, because they needed to do something to bring more people in. And actually, I don't know if you saw Louisville Kings. They have sold out the first game, and so they're all excited about selling out the first game, and hopefully they can continue that as well. But hopefully everybody from all the leagues, from all the teams, will be able to sell out. And one of the unique things that the UFL did, and one of the things that I did like, with the exception of the St. Louis Battlehawks, mostly everyone went to a smaller stadium to fill the crowd. And so what the Battlehawks, they were pumping 30 and 40,000 people. How many you could fit in that dome? They sold out continuously. So I like the fact that a lot of these teams are going to soccer stadiums, which have about 15,000, sometimes 13,000, but you can fill a crowd with that amount of people.
Yeah, and like we said, UFL ain't playing no games. Those are heavy hitters. You talking about DJ Khaled, you talking about Nelly, Gucci Man, like they're going all out to sell the product. And
Wale's coming to the Defenders.
Is he going to be there for the opening day?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, that's major. And for people that may not know, the DC Defenders are the defending champions. Without going into too much detail, is there a team that can threaten them or stop them from a repeat?
Well, Birmingham before then was the champions for like 4 years in a row. And I know a lot of those players may not be on that team. So this is going to be one of these seasons where it's anybody's season. I do like the quarterback play and the running back play for the Orlando Storm. I'm not just saying that because I cover the Orlando Storms, but they got Jason Corbin, who led the league, the UFL, in rushing.
Yes.
And so when you got him, and then you got Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the DTR, who was a quarterback that played at UCLA and he got drafted by the Cleveland Browns. You know, so you got a lot of these different talented players that are on the team. And but the defenders, I can't take anything away from them. They're really well coached. Coach Shannon, he's actually, I know him, and he's did a heck of a job with keeping that team together and just keeping the players together. And they still retain their quarterback, which is actually a good thing.
Right. Now, again, you're close. You feel the pulse of the team. I know you also have a pregame show that you're going to be doing. Can you go into detail about some of the things you guys are going to be covering on the pregame show and how you'll be able to shed light on this team and the UFL through these pregame shows that you got going on?
Yeah, and thanks for that. We partner with Tom's Watch Bar here in Orlando. There's Tom's Watch Bar in a few other states and cities as well. But we partner with Tom's Watch Bar here in Orlando, and we're going to be doing our pregame broadcasting on this Saturday, actually, in Tom's Watch Bar, just to get the crowd excited, to get everybody, you know, ready to watch some spring football. So we're excited to be a part of that and bring everything to everybody. And man, it's going to be excitement. We have some really good sponsors, and we're just all in. We're ready to just bring everything we can to the Orlando Storm. This is the inaugural season, as you already know. So we're just trying to make everyone aware. And one of the good things about it, we just don't want to tailor the audience just to Orlando, just because they're the Orlando Storms. You know, one of the things we're bringing DJ Khaled, you're going to attract people from South Florida that want to come up to see him perform, and then look at this Orlando team, because you're in your neck of the woods. You got people from Jacksonville that'll come, and Tampa that'll be there. And, you know, so it's excited just to see that in the Orlando Storm Report, or the Storm Report, that's what we are part of. That's our show. We're going to be bringing a lot to everyone, so they have an opportunity to see what we have. That's
amazing, man. That's dope. I'm so happy to hear about what you guys are doing there, because I do think spring football needs that push. I'm a big time football fan, just as you are. So I always enjoy watching a quality product. And so with the UFL, with what they're doing and how they're putting this packaging together, I think it has the opportunity to be very, very successful for the UFL. I know they're currently at 8 teams. Are there any talks about adding teams beyond this season, or do they plan on staying at this number for a little bit?
Yeah, and I know they get asked that question all the time. It's funny you should mention that, because last year at the UFL Championship, I had an opportunity to interview Russ Brandon and Danny Garcia, and Danny's one of the owners of the UFL, and she said that we're looking at all types of options. We're going to make some changes that's going to be beneficial to the UFL, which they did. They added 3 new teams in 3 markets, you know. But I know one of the goals for them is to expand. I think they want to see how this season is going to play out because of the new expansion and a lot of new things, a lot of new rules that's being implemented. And if they have the success which everybody think they will, I wouldn't be surprised to see them go to a 12-team league.
Wow, that'd be major. If they can get to a 12-team league in the spring, I think that's major, and a major opportunity for a lot of young men who maybe just don't get the call from the NFL.
Yeah, this is definitely some more game tape. That's one of the things that's been pushed the entire time. I have personally talked to a lot of young men that play in the UFL who've played in the NFL as well, and their goal is to get back. And this is some game film for them to show the NFL that, hey, we still can compete on a high level, and the UFL is a high level league, and people are aware of that. You have people that was drafted, people who were undrafted free agents, but they made it to the NFL, and sometimes they lost their way and they're making it right back. But the UFL is that stepping stone, and that's one of the things I love about the UFL.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm be paying attention. I'm encouraging everyone to pay attention, because I think the combination of the rollout of the league this season, along with some of these changes, are going to make this a very exciting. I shouldn't say changes. Some of these rules that we haven't seen from the NFL side of things are going to make this a very interesting spring football season. Now, I want to ask you, and let's talk a little bit more personal, because obviously you and I have conversations all the time off air.
Right.
So I got to ask you, because we're in March Madness. You're a Tar Heel guy. What's going on with North Carolina? Speak on your thoughts on this Hubert Davis situation.
Well, I know Hubert Davis, and I never want to see anyone lose their job, but people want to see results as well. North Carolina is one of these premier powerhouse basketball teams who doesn't expect to get put out in the first round, and unfortunately, he didn't coach the way he should have. When you're up 19 points to VCU, you have to finish them. You got to put them to bed so that you can get ready for the next round. And that didn't happen. And it was a lot of frustration and things of that nature. And like I said, I never want anybody just to lose their job. But I think it was time for him to go. And I know North Carolina is going to not rush until getting a new coach. They're going to take their time and really streamline, even though there's been a lot of names that's been popping up, as who should be coaching the next coach of the Tar Heels. And I think the person that's going to be coaching the Tar Heels next is going to be coming from a decision where everybody has input. And when I say everybody, I mean all the top leaders for North Carolina, and keep these recruits. Caleb Wilson didn't outright say that he was going to go to the NBA. So If you have an opportunity to keep this young man along with Henry Vessar, you can keep those two. That's actually great because North Carolina has a really good recruiting class coming in this year. So if you can keep those two young men in conjunction with some of the other players, one of the only players that you can't keep is Seth Trimble because he's a senior, but you'll have to just make up for his points and his defense. But it was a tough call, and I just know that people North Carolina wants to win. When you come from a winning program, people expect you to win now. If you have a couple of losing seasons, they're going to want you out of there.
I think they should go the route of someone who has ties to the program and was a part of, when they were great winners. I know certain names have been thrown around. Is there anyone in particular you would like to see on the sidelines coaching the Tar Heels?
Man, you know what? It's I wouldn't say that these are people that I'm advocating for, but I wouldn't be surprised if you get like a Bradley Stevens that will come out. He's 49, I think he's 49. He's with Boston, but he's and then Jerry Stackhouse. He has some coaching experience. I don't know if they want to go back to player route. And then there's a few other Nate Oakes, maybe. But there's a few coaches that are out there, but I wouldn't be surprised. And I'm not saying that I have any inside scoop or anything on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they approached Bradley Stevens to see if he would leave the Celtics to come coach the Tar Heels.
That would be an interesting one because I think Brad Stevens always loved the college game, coaching at the college level. I think he's a great head coach. I don't think he was ever meant for the NBA. And the Celtics have had a little bit more success with him transitioning to the front office because he is a great basketball mind. There's no doubt about that. I'm going to advocate for a New York guy because we got to, this the home team.
Kenny Smith
should get the job.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I met Kenny before too, and I think the thing is they want someone who actually has true coaching experience. That coached at a D1. Now Kenny will bring, and North Carolina doesn't need to have people fill the seats because they fill out every game, But he would definitely bring some excitement to the to the Tar Heels. And if they don't bring him on as a head coach, he could consider or maybe look at coming in as an assistant coach. Because look at what North Carolina already had: an assistant coach, Sean May, and they had a head coach in Hubert Davis. So they already had two Tar Heels right there, So I don't know if they just want to go Tar Heel heavy. I think they're going to go with the person who they think that's going to give them the best opportunity to win and win in Tar Heel fashion. And that's win that championship that they so desperately looking to win.
That's fair. Shout out to my man, Will Gordon. I see him in the comment section. For those of you that have been rocking with the podcast, I know Wednesday nights, Will Gordon and myself, we go over a bunch of different topics. Had a great episode up yesterday that's in the archive section over on YouTube. So guys, make sure you subscribe to that. If you're just locking in with us, as you can see, I'm sitting here with Terry Spain, author, motivational speaker, sports journalist. Terry does it all, man. All right. Will said, F it, go get King Rice, experienced, an ex-Tar Heel.
Hey, look, he's another name that they could throw in there. Like I told you before, North Carolina is they're going to really streamline who they want to coach this basketball team, because what they don't want to happen, and not to take anything away from Coach Belichick, but a lot of people were scratching their heads when he signed to be the head coach of the North Carolina
Football,
Tar
yeah,
football. And so they don't want another head scratcher in football and in basketball,
right.
and North Carolina football team didn't have a lot of success. So you're going to have to get somebody who knows basketball, like you mentioned before, and someone who's actually going to be able to retain these recruits. And right now the transfer portal is open. There's a lot of people that are in the portal that are purposely waiting to see who the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels are going to be, because look, who wouldn't want to play for the Tar Heels?
That's a fact. Well, my understanding of it, Belichick only took the job for his son. He took the job with their intention of him passing over the head coaching seat to his son within 2 or 3 years, which could still happen. But obviously, they didn't have a great year last year, so we'll see if that remains the plan in North Carolina. I know also, keeping it college basketball, you were down at the ACC tournament. What were some of the things you were seeing out there? What was some of the news maybe you were hearing out there? And just talk about the overall experience covering the ACC tournament.
Yeah, I've been covering the ACC tournament. It was 18 years I've been covering the tournament. So each year it gets better, and just to see some of the talent that comes out of the ACC. And I have one of my cousins who plays for Wake Forest. I think I told you, Trayvon Spillers. They didn't make the NCAA tournament. They lost last week in the NIT. But just to see him play was a priceless and a good moment for me. Just to see one of your relatives play it in the ACC. But overall, I had an opportunity to talk to Carlos Boozer. He has two boys that play for Duke, and then so just to talk to him and see his reaction of watching his sons play an ACC tournament for the first time, that was absolutely amazing. I think there are only two other people that had played at Duke, father-son duo. So that was actually a good storyline to have. And then also, just to see how many people travel to watch these tournaments, and the amount of money that pumps into when they playing in Charlotte or wherever. I got a chance. I ran into Carmelo Anthony. He was there to see his son Cayenne play, even though they didn't have the tournament that they was hoping to have. But Cayenne, I got a chance. I talked to him for a little bit as well. Really good young man, and I don't know if he's going to stay or go, but he has a lot of talent. I think he just needs to go ahead and let people show people what he can do, even more in college basketball.
That's a great segue to my next question, because Carmelo was recently on his show, kind of talking about the experience this year and some of the struggles that Cayenne had with playing time, with the coaching staff. Obviously, there's going to be a new coach coming into Syracuse, and you talked about Cayenne. Do you think we see his name in the transfer portal, or do you think he tries to thug it out in Syracuse? Because obviously there's the lineage there, there's the history of what his dad has done there. But there's also been some talks about, again, some of the things that are taking place away from the court. Shout out to Will Gordon. Like I said, when he and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, even before the ACC tournament, there was that news that they changed the name of that building that Carmelo Anthony had made a donation to. So there's a lot of moving parts in Syracuse. Do you think we might see Cayenne's name in the transfer portal?
I wouldn't be surprised. One of the things that Cayenne has to really determine is, does he want to live in the shadows of his dad? Because that's a lot of pressure. So if he goes to a school and he's able to be the guy, I think that would be good for him. When you come to Syracuse and your dad was one of the all-time greats at Syracuse, people are going to expect you to be that same exact way. But there had some good players at Syracuse, so he wasn't just going to walk in and take one of these great players, spots on the team. But I personally, I'm a loyalty guy, right? So I love when players can stick it out and do 3 or 4 years or what have you. But I understand the wave of the NIL and transfer portal. But I wouldn't be surprised if he transferred to another school.
Yeah, it's looking that way. Like I said, especially reading between the lines of what Carmelo was saying, it kind of sounds like they were frustrated and they didn't like the experience of what was going on in Syracuse.
I'll tell you what, Eric, when I was at the tournament, and I've never seen this before in my entire tournament, there were people that was screaming, not just even in the crowd, but even behind the scenes to fire the head coach, like people in the back. You know, where where a lot of folks can't go,
Yeah.
only media and everyone else can
right.
go. That was rumblings of him getting fired. Then there were people when I was looking out when I was walking through. You know, sometimes I like to surveillance the crowd. People were saying that they wouldn't be surprised if he got fired right after the game.
Wow.
So when you
and
know
shortly
that
after, and shortly after the news broke, right?
Yeah. So it goes to show you that, I mean, a lot of people had their mind made up, and the people who make those decisions were kind of had their mind made up. But yeah, that was a tough one. We talk about recruiting, we talking about retaining and keeping players. Now you got to bring a new coach in, and that coach didn't recruit you. So now am I going to have to prove myself, or I'm going to have to wait my turn? And a lot of folks don't want to wait their turn in the days of the transfer portal. If they can't have the best opportunity for them, they're going to transfer.
Right. Got a question from Will. Shout out to Will. And beforehand, to let you know, he is a Terps guy, Maryland Terrapin guy. So
why did they leave the ACC?
No, so check. He said, how much better do you think the ACC was before the additions from the Big East and teams that left for the Big Ten and other places? I think the ACC was the perennial measuring stick for NCAA ball, no more. So that's his question for you, Terry.
Yeah. So you're asking how do you think the ACC would be?
How much better do you think the ACC? He's basically asking how much better do you think the ACC was before all of this merging of conferences and we're going to pull this school over. He's talking about the traditional ACC at its height through the 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. So I think the ACC, which also stands for accomplished greatness, just in case no one didn't know that. I think the ACC has had a lot of talent, and we continue to pump a lot of talent. There's a lot of people, the traditional ACC teams. When you think of the ACC, you think of North Carolina, you think of Duke, and then there are other teams as well that you think of. But those are the two perennial powerhouses that people usually think of. And I don't think those teams have completely fallen off. But I remember those days with the ACC when Maryland was in the ACC tournament. A lot of people were a little disappointed when they left, the ACC. But I think there's a lot of people who have caught up to the ACC, the SEC in general. The SEC, you would think that they were a football school. Now you have 10, 11 teams that in the SEC that are making the NCAA tournament. So there's a little bit of a shift. And I think a lot of that plays to the transfer portal and NIL.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, transfer portal, NIL, the significance of a head coach. I mean, you look at Coach Cal at Arkansas, that changes the way they recruit. That changes the way they can get talent over there. And like I said, that's SEC now. Same thing with Kentucky for a long time. So I think it definitely plays a major, major factor. Will also want to let you know, Terry, he said Johnny Rose is his cousin. I'm a Terp through and through.
All right, Turpin them in the home of the Turpins.
Yeah. Since we're on the subject of college basketball and the tournament, Sweet 16 weekend right now. Texas and Purdue are playing right now. Give me your thoughts on how's your bracket looking? Did you fill out a bracket this year?
But I fill out a bracket every year. And I will say this: last year I won my bracket, and we had some really good basketball heads in this bracket. It's a few of us that have been playing basketball or coach or doing it. And we had some real basketball heads, and I won. This year, I picked the Gators to win again because I thought they were gonna win off their height and things of that nature. But needless to say, my bracket is done.
Right.
But I will say this: the team that I'm going for is Houston.
Okay.
I think
Houston to get back and finish the job this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I actually have Houston getting into the Final Four. One of the things I highlighted yesterday as we were talking about March Madness, I know there's a lot of talk, the big names are out, right? The Vance is out, Peterson's out, Darren Peterson's out, Caleb Wilson's out, Mikael Brown out of Louisville's out. But from the 16 teams that are left, there are still 18 players that are projected to be first-round picks that are still playing this weekend. So I think it's a great opportunity for fans to watch the Sweet 16. I think it's going to be some great basketball and an opportunity to see some of these future stars, because a lot of these guys that are playing this weekend are going to transition to that next level this summer at the draft. We got some great matchups. You got Duke, St. John's, you got Michigan State, UConn, you got Arizona, Arkansas, Houston, and Illinois. Is there any particular matchup you're paying attention to this weekend?
I want to see how St. John's was in a battle their last game, and I actually think St. John's is going to beat Duke. And then also everybody's a little high on Arizona. I got to see them again. You know, I don't really watch too many Arizona games because most of the time when they're playing, they're at night and I'm asleep. You know, I mean, I got to be honest with you. You know, but I have seen them play before. I'm anxious to see how they're going to play in this next round, but I wouldn't be surprised, and that's probably going to be my surprise pick is St. John's beating Duke.
I wouldn't be surprised either. My assessment for that game, can Duke handle the full court pressure of St. John's all game? They're gonna force them out of their offense. They're gonna force Caden Boozer to have to control the game. And I think they're going to force the ball out of Cam's hands. They're going to force other guys to have to do it. Pitino is one of the great all-time coaches. One of the segments we had yesterday, and I talked about this, we need to start having real conversations about Pitino being on the Mount Rushmore of greatest college coaches. He's only one of two guys. He's one of two guys to ever take 3 different schools to the Final Four, right? If he wins this with St. John's, he'll be the only coach to ever take 4 different schools to the Final Four, and he would have won with 3 different schools. Right. So
I would play for Pitino any day.
I think Rick Pitino is an amazing head coach, and he's done it at every stop. Even when he had that, that situation with Louisville, he goes to Iona, he immediately turned around Iona's program. He is truly one of the great head coaches in the collegiate game. But that Arizona-Arkansas game, that's the game tonight. That's the late game. I'm going to be tuning in because I'm a fan of Darius Acuff. But I want to see how he handles. Yeah, I love his game. I think he reminds me. To me, he's a better shooting version of what Stephon Marbury was in college. His ability to get to the basket, his ability to get to anywhere on the court, a 3-level scorer. Like I said, he's a threat the moment he crosses half court. But this is, to me, is going to be their toughest challenge because Arizona has a lot of interior size on that team. So is he going to be able to finish around the trees in the lane, or are they going to force him to beat them from the perimeter? So we're going to see.
I'm going to watch that game too. I'm not going to sleep at all tonight. I'm going to stay up and watch that game because this is it. This is what people watch March Madness for.
Yeah, I think it's some, like I said, great games and a lot of great talent to pay attention to. Shout out to Will. I knew Will never fails with the comments, man. He says, I want to see St. John's beat Duke. If Pitino could bring a chip to St. John's, all waitresses in the area restaurants are on notice. Rick is coming false. Definitely pause on that. Shout out to my man Will Gordon. Never fails.
But he and I do agree. I want St. John's to win that game.
I think it'll be amazing for St. John's. Yeah. It's been so long since they've been relevant on this level anyway. Last time I remember St. John's being this good, we're talking about the days of like Eric Barkley and Ron Artest. So we're talking late 90s, early 2000. It's been 20 plus years. And St. John's has a great history of basketball.
They sure do.
Yeah, so I'm rooting for them as well. I would love to see the upset and see how far Pitino could take this. Because like I said, I truly admire Rick Pitino. I think he's one of the greats all time. Again, guys, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. We're live every Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you're just joining the live, as you can see, I got a special guest, my main man, Terry Spain. If you've been following my journey on social media, you know Terry and I have worked together on several different projects. We covered the Orlando Magic back in November. We were down at the Senior Bowl. We got a lot of other things coming up sports-wise. And make sure you are following Terry Spain. You will not be disappointed. Sports journalist, motivational speaker. We got to get into that as well because you do a lot of mentorship with the youth.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that I feel is so underrated about all the things you do, right? You wear many hats in your day-to-day life. Can we talk about the mentorship that you do? You have a book out called Hey Young Man, right? Yeah. You just recently had a speaking engagement that I saw that you posted on social media as well. When did that start, and when did you know this was a path that you wanted to go down as a mentor for young men?
Yeah, well, this started with, with my upbringing. My dad was a mentor to a lot of men in the community, and he's a pastor too. So I mean, I ain't no pastor, but I did see, that's where I got my a lot of my my thought process and things of that nature. But I saw that there was a huge deficiency in these young men. And as you know, I go around the country and the world and I speak, but I always noticed that there was a big gap and young men not getting what they need from men such as myself and older. And so I decided to write a book, and then I started doing a lot more public speaking. I've been getting invited to come to schools. I mentor tons of athletes, and some of the athletes that I mentor was drafted last year, and some are going to be drafted this year. And shout out to my guys who have their pro days and have their pro days coming up. Kevin Gillum, one of the Virginia Tech guy, and then the Lowry, he just had his Denzel Lowry just had his pro day in for Louisville. And so but I mentor a lot of these young men to give them this guidance that they need. If some of them do have fathers, some of them do have father figures in their life, but it's always good to have that extra person that can kind of say, hey, I know you don't want to talk to your dad or your mom, but you want or your uncle or whoever you may have. But you have this guy that can come in and talk to you and don't want anything from you. And I think that's one of the biggest things that these young men love about me, is that I don't need anything from them. I have been put in a situation where God has tremendously blessed me, so I don't have to ask for handouts or any of that thing. As a matter of fact, I'm actually giving them the hands out, and it doesn't have to just be financially. It can be the knowledge. It can be everything else, access, and so by me being able to mentor not just athletes, young men in general, and putting them on the right path and showing them that not everyone is going to be an athlete. We need plumbers. We need steel workers. We need people in the military. We need cybersecurity. We need intel officers. We need all these different things. And if you show them that they can be that, because oftentimes what I've noticed is that that's all they know is to be a rapper or something. They didn't know anything outside of being a rapper, being an educator, or things of that nature. So when you kind of motivate them and get them excited about being something other than an athlete, and nothing wrong with that, because I'm an athlete, you already know that. But I have to be honest with you, I've seen people that thought they were going to make it to the professional ranks and did not have a game plan to help them out. So one of the things that I do, I like to get them early and say, hey, what's next? What do you have if this doesn't work out? And so I always tell them to go the extra mile, because it's never crowded.
Yeah, man. I like I said, I admire that work that you do, and being a mentor. I've seen it firsthand with, again, the interactions with people. My one of my favorite experiences from Senior Bowl, and I talk about this all the time, is when we got to speak with Mike Washington Jr. And I do because, just to give some people background on it, because, people have asked, oh, how was the Senior Bowl experience? I'm like, to me, it was amazing. It was my first time covering it. You covered it for a very long time. That was my first time. So I didn't know what to expect. And it's hectic at times. You don't know if you're going to get an opportunity to speak with certain people, who's going to become available. Mike was the first guy that we got to speak to that day. And immediately, both you and I were impressed by his backstory, right? What his motivations were when he told us about his brother, who was a Marine, and how that allowed him to remain focused and stay centered. And to then see, what he did at the combine, you and I text each other like we were excited for him, but that speaks to who you are as a man, because like you said, you don't want anything from these guys. You just want the best for them. You want to see them succeed. And I saw that in that interaction with Mike. You handed him the challenge coin, you handed him your book, and you let him know, listen, if you ever need anything, I'm available to you. And I wish you the best on your journey. And to me, I think that's very important, because there's so many people and these young athletes, we're going to keep it athletes, in their lives, who want something from them. Hey, can I partner up with this guy to get the look, to be able to get in that inner circle? You've been the opposite. I don't want anything for you. I just want to see the best happen for you. So I think that's very commendable, and that's something that needs to be highlighted in your journey and everything that you do, Terry.
Man, I appreciate that. And I don't know if you remember after we finished interviewing Mike, I don't know if you remember what I told you about him. I said, this young man is going to be special. Remember I told you that?
Yep.
You can see it. Like for me, I've interviewed and I've interacted with tons of athletes, and you can kind of see who has it and who don't. But this young man, very straightforward, and you saw it when I gave him that coin. He just like was like in awe. And he said, I always wanted something like this. You remember he said that. And so I was like, this is perfect. And I'm really proud of him. Him and I kind of hit each other up back and forth. And, I told him when he ran when he was at the combine and he ran his 40, and I just kind of encouraged him. And he loves stuff like that. He was like, thank you. I appreciate that. Very similar to my guy, Xavier Leggett. We're from South Carolina.
That's your man. Yeah, that's your guy right there.
Yeah. So it's a bunch of, and I'm not being biased. I do love my South Carolina athlete because we from Carolina, but it's just good to see when you see people that's from your hometown or your neck of the woods that are doing exceptionally well.
Shout out, and since you mentioned, I gotta tell a funny story. Shout out to my man Frank. Frank's family is from South Carolina. I know Frank from the Bronx because he was living up there when I was still in New York. And after we posted the Senior Bowl stuff, remember I told you the story, he hit me up because I posted some of the clips you and I had, and he reposted it, but he didn't tag you. And he said the people from Carolina, they was in his inbox going crazy. Like, I know you're not going to sit here and not tag Terry, and he was like, hold on, I'm just showing love to my man from New York. Like it'd be the slight Terry what they got going on. So he hit me up immediately. So shout out to Frank. I know he be tuning into the lives as well, man. Will got a question for you here. He said, where you from, Terry? Did you go to college, play any youth sports? What's your favorite assignment since covering sports professionally? Who are your teams? Yeah, that's a lot of questions in one, Will, but we're going to get to them one by one.
Let's knock them out.
Start knock them down one by one.
Yeah, so I did not go to college off the rip. I went in the Navy, and I definitely played youth sports, basketball and football, but mainly it was basketball for me. One unique fact about me is I actually played basketball in Italy. I grew up in Italy, and I played basketball overseas, and I had an opportunity to interact with some NBA players who would go and play basketball overseas. Some of those guys trained me to play basketball as a teenager, and that's how I was able to be who I am when playing basketball. Shout out to Wallace Bryant, Klay Thompson's dad. He actually was one of the guys that I met too, Michael Thompson, and they were in Italy when I was growing up as a 15-year-old. My favorite assignment covering since sports, man, there's so many, but quite honestly, I think two of my favorite is covering the Senior Bowl, because that's where I got my start at. In 2000, I had an opportunity to cover the Senior Bowl. My editor had gotten sick, and he wanted to see if I wanted to cover the Senior Bowl, and I was able to cover the Senior Bowl, and that was the first thing I was ever able to cover as far as sports, and I've been hooked ever since. And then I also love the ACC tournaments, man. Those never get old for me. Just to see some of these young players who I've been mentoring, playing at the highest level in college basketball, and them to play in these tournaments is definitely priceless. And then for my teams, for college football, I'm a Florida State Seminole all day and through. For college basketball, I'm a Tar Heel. I know you're probably wondering why, but look, that we're in the ACC, so that's matter. For NBA, I'm an Atlanta Hawks fan. I've been a Hawks fan since Dominique. Dominique's one of my favorite players, and I actually got a chance to work with Dominique when the Hawks come down here to play the Magic, so he already knows that. And Dominique, he grew up in France, so we have a lot in common. And then for NFL, I'm a huge Chicago Bears fan. I've been a Bears fan since the 80s. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is that Gale Sayers, before he passed, was one of my mentors for a few years. And but I've been a Bears fan for a long time. And my guy, he's one of my mentees. One of the guys I'm real cool with is Roshan Johnson, who plays for the Chicago Bears. So shout out to him as well. And for baseball, I'm a huge Atlanta Braves fan. Shout out to Mike Yastrzemski, season openers today, and my boy Chris Sales. Those are my guys, So Mike Yastrzemski was the winner for our Bob Feller Foundation this year. And shout out to my other guy, because he'll kill me if I don't mention him, Byron Buxton for the Minnesota Twins. That's my guy.
Shout out to Byron Buxton, was just part of Team USA for the World Baseball Classic.
Sure was.
Today's opening day. I know you're a Braves fan. That's why I wore my Mets jersey. That was intentional because I knew it was opening day. Let's see. And for those that, like you mentioned, Dominique, the Dominique jersey in the background as well, one of
Oh
the
yeah.
legendary players. Um, we're gonna get into a little bit of NFL. We'll do NBA. Obviously, we're about 2.5 weeks away from the playoffs. Um, your thoughts on the Orlando Magic? Obviously, you cover them on a daily basis. You're close to the team. You kind of see what's going on there. When I was
Yeah.
down there back in November, I was asking, like, do you think this team is ready to take the next step with Bain coming in? And what do you think, Paolo? So where do you stand with them now as we approach playoff time? Do you feel this team has grown, or do you feel they've kind of hit a stalemate and it's kind of stagnant in where they're at in their progression?
Well, that's a good question. But first, I want to shout out to him. My guy, Jamal Mosley. He's the head coach of the Magic.
Coach Mosley, yep.
Yeah. But I think this team kind of hit a brick wall. And I know some of it's due to injury. One of the Franz Wagner, he was out for a while. And this team they're on a losing streak. They play Sacramento tonight, I think. And if they lose to Sacramento's, it's going to be real tough. They went from the 6th seed all the way down to the 10th seed, if I'm not mistaken, in a matter of like a week. And so I don't know what this team is missing. It looks like they don't. They did a good job. I covered the OKC game, and they did play OKC quite well. They actually came back, tied the game up, and all these different things. But when you got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on your team, good luck with trying to guard that guy.
Right.
But I was saying, and because the night before they played Atlanta in Atlanta and was blown out.
Atlanta, the hottest teams in the league right now.
Oh, they're I love it. But they gave up 82 points to the Alexander cousins. Shea got 40. Nikhil has 42. In the span of 2 days, they gave up 82 points to two people.
Yep. So the Orlando Magic are in very, very tough spot right now. As you mentioned, they're the 10th seed. They're going to get into the play-in tournament because there's no threat to get to that 10th seed from Milwaukee. But that's not what you trade Desmond Bain for. You didn't make that type of investment to just be a play-in team. They thought they were going to have an opportunity to compete with the upper echelon of the East, and it has not gone that way. Do you think, I hope it doesn't, but do you think Coach Mosley, will he get the blame for this, or do you think he'll get another season to try to figure it out? Because like you said, early on, Paolo was hurt. When we were actually down in Orlando, Paolo missed that game. And he was hurt early on, and then now Franz has been out. So it's been tough to get that chemistry with their big three. Can Coach Mosley survive this?
Yeah, I think that he earned a lot of respect from not just the leadership, but he earned a lot of respect from the coaches. From the fans. There hasn't been too many rumblings of firing Coach Mosley because he's such a likable guy, and a lot of people respect him. But I will say this: you made some key trades. You traded away Anthony and all these other players, and you got to think about it like this as a coach. Are you better off last year than you are this year? And I think the Magic were better off last year.
Yeah.
And so you make a big trade for somebody like Bain, who's supposed to come in, and I don't want to say he's going to be their savior because they have Paolo, but he was definitely supposed to be that 1-2 punch. And for them not to, for them to regress the way they have, I don't know. I just think some of the players have played not to their full potential. And the crazy thing about it is, a lot of people were saying in the beginning of the season that the East is wide open because so many key players were being hurt. Tatum was out. The guy from
Halliburton was out.
Halliburton was out.
Traded.
Yeah. So everybody was like, well, the East is going to be wide open. But, and a lot of people were expecting Orlando to take that next leap, like you mentioned before. But wow, man, I like Orlando, but it's just tough to see them regress that bad. And I really hope if they lose to Sacramento tonight, like I said, they'll be in the play-in tournament. But who wants to play in the play-in tournament? You know what I mean? That's a lot of effort you got to put into it.
You don't give up the draft capital that they gave up for Desmond Bain to be a play-in team.
Yes.
You make that move because you think you're going to be one of the top 4 teams and have a chance to come out of the East. This could really set them back. We got to see how it works out. Will, Will knows we get the parlays in. He said Paulo Banchero. He said he's on a parlay ban list. He be gambling, Terry. Let's run down a couple football topics and then we'll wrap up for tonight. As always, guys, make sure you subscribe to the Sanchez Show live every Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. And pay attention because I am going to be adding an extra day every week to go live. Now that we got a lot going on, man. NBA playoffs around the corner. We got the NFL draft coming up. Obviously, baseball season officially started today. So there's a lot of sports content that we got to get into week in, week out. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Follow me on social media. Pay attention to the alerts and lock in with me on that end. Also, make sure you are following Terry Spain, Sports First Media. A lot of great content and great information out there. So pay attention to what he got going on. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Let's get to some NFL talk, though, because I know you are a Bears fan. And last year was a great season for the Bears. Mm-hmm. You guys, you trade DJ Moore. You and I kind of knew that was going to happen. The progression of Rome Odunze as the number one guy. Luther Burden came on really strong at the second half of last season. Loveland, Komet, a lot of weapons.
Jade Walker.
Right, Jade Walker. A lot of weapons for Caleb. So it only made sense. The Bears at the 25th pick, what would you like to see them do? And what areas do you think the Bears need to improve in to take that next step?
Well, we definitely got to go defense. I mean, there's no question. We were getting gashed in the run game. So I wouldn't be surprised if we picked up McDonald from Ohio State. But there has been some rumblings about us getting that defensive end from out of Missouri as well. Or even a safety or corner. The Bears can go in many different directions. One of the unique things that we have in our favor is that we have 2 second-round draft pick, high second-round draft picks. So if we can go shopping and we maybe even move back in the draft a little bit to get additional picks. But I would love us to show up that defensive line a little bit and get some more help on that, and then and definitely go in that back, and get some more safety help and cornerback help too. But I think we're going to go defense heavy, maybe the first 3 rounds. And then after that, I think we'll kind of splurge in with an offensive lineman maybe. And then also, and everything else will just be bonus picks. I wouldn't be surprised to see us get another running back. And the only reason why I say that is because Homer left and went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have Roshan, but he's going to be fighting for he's going to be fighting for a position with the emergence of Manungai, 7th round draft pick from Rutgers, and then we have Swift. So I wouldn't be surprised for us to draft another running back. And it could be, even if we don't draft one, get one undrafted free agent. No one expected Kyle Manungai to be the player that he was in the 7th round. So we can go and get another running back. I think that would be another option as well. And then maybe get another wide receiver. Yeah,
add some depth to the running back room. But yeah, I do agree. I think the Bears are going to focus on their defense, try to tighten up the defense. But it was a great year, and there's going to be high expectations this year. I want to just start a couple names, a couple guys that I know that you've either mentored or have a relationship with. So I wanted to try to get your thoughts on where you would like to see them go. First things first, a young guy out of Miami, Hakeem Mesidor. He's projected to go top 15, top 20 at the latest. A lot of the mock drafts I've seen, he has not gone past 20. Where would you like to see him go?
Yeah, I talked to Hakeem. He's one of those guys that I send him texts all the time. Mm-hmm. Very, very respectable young man from out of Canada, Ottawa area. And I would love to see him come to the Bears. I don't know if he's going to.
Come on, man. You can't be selfish with that. Now you're asking him to drop to 25. He ain't going to be there at 25, man.
Well, you never know. A lot of people are kind of nervous about getting him because he's going to be 25. Yeah. And so they're looking at contract wise and is he going to be able to sustain or what have you. But he and I joked about this, about him coming to the Bears. I said, just imagine if you came to the Bears, bro. How you think? He said, oh, my God. I said that would be amazing. But I don't know if he would be there at 25 like you mentioned before. But I do see him going to a team that there's a lot of teams that need defensive standouts. So he's going to go in the top 20, even though I would prefer him to come to the Bears.
I think, it's going to be interesting. I think how like picks 4 through 8 pan out. Because we could either see a big rush on defense, or we could start to see some of the skill position guys come off the board, right? Because 5 through 8, 5 through 9 is where we're expecting Jeremiah Love, Carnell Tate. So if we start to see the rush of offensive guys, then yes, you might see some great defensive talent still on the board as you get to 15, 16, 17. I think Hakeem, I think at Baltimore makes perfect sense for Hakeem. So there's a couple spots that could make sense for him. Your man Darnell Jackson out of Florida State. We saw him at the Senior Bowl.
D-Jack.
Dominant performance at the Senior Bowl. Went viral within 20 minutes of hitting the field. He went viral on Twitter.
And the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah, he had a great run of bowl games. This a couple months ago. Where would you think would be a great fit for him and his skill set?
Yeah, D-Jack, man, that's my guy, man. He's been having a lot of great things that's been going on with him over the last, few months, and I think he's going to go in the second or third round, possibly. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to Tampa.
Ooh, stay close to home.
Yeah. Yeah, or Jacksonville. Jacksonville is known for getting a lot of their Florida players. And they do that strategically because they want to put butts in seats, but then they got the familiarity with that. But and another place too is Miami. Miami let almost everybody go.
Miami,
So me and you can go play for Miami right now.
Yeah, we can get a contract, get a 1 year, a 1 year deal. Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see D-Jack go to Miami.
If anybody from Miami front office listening, I'm actually a good cover 2 cornerback. I could play some corner. As long as it's got to be a lot of zone coverage, though.
I have an inside scoop for you with Miami. I know somebody that's one of the top leaders there, man. So listen, I can throw a contract in for you, man.
Listen, I don't want to get embarrassed trying to play man coverage out there, but if you put me in zone, I got a high football IQ. I can play a lot of zone coverage on the side of the field. Put Terry on one side, put me on the other side, and run a lot of cover 2, cover 3 zone looks. We can make it work, man. Again, guys, make sure you are following Terry Spade. You see his social media handle there. Go get his book. Go on his IG, click the link. His book, Hey Young Man, it's a great book. Again, this is a gentleman who does a lot of great work in the community, mentorships, public speaking, motivational speaking. And that's aside from all the great work he's doing in sports. So you guys got to tune in with Terry, get familiar with him, lock in with him, because any sporting event you're talking about, Terry's probably there, man. There's sometimes I turn the game on, I text you, right, Terry, you at the game tonight? Because I'm sure you're there. I just thought about who's playing right now. Terry probably over there. So definitely lock in with him. Before we wrap up the night, though, Terry, is there anything you want to plug? I know you got the Orlando Storm pregame show called The Quiet Storm that you guys are going to be doing again, like you said, from Tom's Bar, right? Tom River Bar? Yeah,
Tom's Watch Bar. And it's called the Storm Report.
Storm Report. Okay, all right.
We have that on AG. So if you go to this, we have that on YouTube. It's called the Storm Report. If you can, if you definitely want to come check us out, we have a few videos that's already up now on the Storm Report. And of course, you can follow me at Terry Spain 21. If you click on that on Instagram, you'll be able to go to our page on from Instagram as well.
Terry, I'm of course we're already in touch, but we might have to bring you back for our NFL draft show.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna see if the schedules work, make it happen. We talk a little bit of draft talk right before the NFL.
Are you going to Pittsburgh?
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about taking a road trip. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be there for day 1 or day 2.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it. But I'm hearing in Pittsburgh it's gonna be crazy. You see, they canceling school and everything. They're making all the kids go virtual for that Thursday and that Friday. They're going virtual. They're expecting heavy traffic. But next year, the draft is here in DC.
I'll be there.
Yeah, so I'll definitely be there for that one. But I'm thinking about taking a road trip to Pittsburgh. We'll see how, as we were talking off air, we'll see how these next few weeks play out with everything that's going on within the country right now. But as always, it was a pleasure. For those of you that don't already, make sure you follow Terry Spain. Make sure you subscribe to the Sanchez Show. We're going to get Terry back probably next month, talk some NFL talk, and we'll get into some playoff stuff. Hopefully Orlando gets themselves together. The Magic, that is. We're wishing for a great season for the Orlando Storm. I know you're going to be in DC when they play the Defenders too, right?
I will be there, man. So you're going to have to come on out for that. And because we play them back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, I looked at the schedule. That's right towards the end of the season. So I'll definitely be out there and we'll get together and get some content from the game, man. But for my brother, Terry Spain, I am Eric Sanchez. This was the Sanchez Show. We'll see you guys next week, man. Enjoy your night, guys.